Do you want a financially secure future, not just for yourself, but for your loved ones as well? This is Generations of Wealth, the podcast that breaks down the most effective wealth building strategies you can easily apply to your own life. Join investor and international best-selling author Derek Dombeck in exploring practical tips and sound advice on building a profitable business, creating a powerful brand, or getting into the thriving world of real estate investing. This is your chance to create your very own financial roadmap to live your vision, love your life. Let's begin this discussion with your host, Derek Dombeck.
Welcome to the Generations of Wealth podcast. I'm Derek Dombeck, your host. Generations of Wealth, where we live our visions and love our lives. Today, I've got just an awesome guest. We've been talking a little bit here before we started the show. Dennis Berry, all the way from Playa del Carmen, Mexico right now, but all over the world. Dennis, thanks for coming on, man.
Thank you, Derek. It's great to be here. I love that concept. Live your vision, love your life. My background feeds right into that, but mine is master your business, own your life. Like we're in the same camp there, the same concept. It's about loving your life, right?
Absolutely. What's the point of living if you don't enjoy it? So, Dennis, why don't you give us the background back when you started out in business, and then we can just go from there.
Sure. So I was in my 20s. I was an old ski racer guy. I told you about that, where I lived in different mountain towns around the country. And to finance my crazy little lifestyle there, I was a chef. So I worked in restaurants and hotels, and I did all that. I went to culinary school. I'm a classically trained French chef, and I did that for a while, which leads to kind of a crazy lifestyle. It was the skiing, the restaurant, the girls, the partying, like all that stuff. I did all that. And but then that was killing me. So eventually I left that world, and my first adult job, quote unquote, was at Cisco Food Service. And this was right around 2000. And that was like my first intro into the corporate business world. And I learned so much about sales and just business in general, marketing. And that was when I started growing up. But what I realized, I was there for about 3.5 years, and I ended up getting fired because of incidents related to a drinking and driving accident I had, which leads to me being sober almost 21 years now. But in that position, what I realized one day, to answer your question about going back to business, is that I was working 60 or more hours a week, sweating, trying to sell food to restaurants and hotels and chefs. And I was making about $80,000 a year, which wasn't bad back then. But my bosses, they had these really nice, cushy offices, and they had pictures of fishing and beaches on the wall. And they were working like 30 hours a week and making like 200 grand. And I was like, something's wrong there. And then Cisco was a $30 billion a year company, 26 billion at the time, now like 38 billion or something. And I realized, I was like, something's way off. I was like, I want to make more of, or at least have a better chance of getting a bigger cut of that 30 billion. And that's when my entrepreneurial business journey began. And it didn't start well. Lots of twists and turns. I had a catering company. I got into personal training for a while. I had all these different businesses, but the problem was, like many entrepreneurs, is I didn't know how to run a business. So I was basically not really running a business well, and getting credit card debt, and had a mortgage I couldn't afford. And so I started selling coins on eBay. Like I would buy coins and then I would resell them, and for a small profit. And I was like, wow, this is interesting. And it was right before, or right like a year before or 2 years before the 2008 crash. What happened was silver was like, $5 an ounce, and gold was like $500 an ounce. And I couldn't afford gold because I was broke, but I started buying, and then I was reselling it. And then all of a sudden I borrowed some money from my brother, and who's a finance guy, and within a year I was selling like 3 million a year in coins and precious metals, and it changed my life forever. And that was where I really learned about business and marketing, e-commerce, customer service, like everything that goes into running a business. I learned doing that, and I made lots of money. And then that was like the big foray into my business lifestyle as we know it today.
Well, there's so much to talk about there, but I guess one of my curiosities was actually before we were talking, you have a big LinkedIn following. So was this at the same time that you were figuring out LinkedIn, or was LinkedIn later?
LinkedIn was much later. In fact, I've had a LinkedIn account, I guess, for 10 years, but through over the years, I was doing different business ventures. And then I was doing a lot of coaching for addiction recovery and alcoholism. But that was going well. Did really well with that. There were times I had like 30 clients, but that one-on-one business model is unscalable. And
Yes.
so and it's a heavy lifestyle. And so what I realized, I was helping people get sober and change their lives. And then I would teach them how to build business, and they were becoming really successful. And I was like, wait a second. I was like, I can make like 5 times as much money and work like 80% less with that more type of a business model focusing on business. And so I made that transition. And it wasn't until I didn't really in LinkedIn until less than 3 years ago. And that was about 3 years ago. And even then it was slow growth until I figured out what I know now, which is how
Mhm.
in the last year, I've gained about over 90,000 followers. Basically learned what that LinkedIn is so much more than a job or posting board. It's about building really foundational relationships. And I'm about to hit 100,000 followers based on my methods.
So for myself and anyone else listening who doesn't use LinkedIn properly, and I will openly admit I don't use it properly, what's the beginning? I mean, I don't expect you to map out how you did what you did, but where can people begin? What is everybody doing wrong?
Yeah, great question. Well, there's a list, but there's 2 services I offer as a coach, and this isn't a sales pitch. I'm just
Mhm.
sharing like what I do. And then that's how I'm going to answer your question. The one side is I do LinkedIn coaching, whereas I show you how to do everything that I'm doing, which is how to write the right content to attract, to clearly define what it is you do. That's the first mistake. Most people don't understand even what they do. If I tell you to give me a pitch, and you might know you're an established businessman. If I tell you to tell me what's your elevator pitch, what can you tell me if you're stuck in an elevator with someone for 20 seconds and they say, what do you do? And you say, well, 25 years ago, I started doing this, and then I was transitioned to this, and I've been divorced now. Like, they're gone. You
Mhm.
have 10 seconds to make an impression. So if you don't know what you do, which is, I would say, number one, figure that out, right? So
Okay.
like, get a 10-second, 20-second pitch down, exactly what you do, products and services, fill out your profile the right way, and then learn to start building relationships. And that's the second part. Is the other service I offer is that we have to set up your business properly and have a seamless workflow. And it starts with a business sales funnel. And I'm not talking about click funnels or any cheesy ads or any of that stuff. What I'm talking about is that every successful business on the planet is set up as a funnel. So on the top of your funnel, there's however many potential people that you could do business with. And in terms of social media, there's 5 billion active monthly social media users on all the big platforms. And on LinkedIn, there's 1 billion or whatever number they throw around. It's around there, right?
Okay.
So that's the top of your funnel. And then we get people into the funnel with our content or a newsletter as we get them down the funnel, your website, or whatever other attraction that you have, some lead magnets, something like that. And then we move them down into maybe you have like some courses or a mid-ticket item. And then out the bottom comes mastermind groups, coaching, whatever it is that you want to do. And so when you set that workflow up simply, That's the key word right there. We need to set up a seamless workflow that's simple to use. The problem is, like, all these workflows have kinks in them, broken pages, payment links, like all these things. And when you have those, they're gone. You have 1 second to make an impression. And if your impression is you have broken links, then they're gone. And they're going to find somebody who has a seamless workflow. So those are the two things I do. And when you focus on it wasn't a pitch for me. It was to tell you that's how you set LinkedIn up for success. And when you do that, you gain followers, you build once you have an audience, then you can sell stuff, which leads me to the next piece of the puzzle, is that most people have the cart before the horse. So they're like, all right, I'm a coach, I'm going to write a book, I'm going to sell my courses, my services, all that stuff. And then they're like, buy my stuff. Why? I don't know you. And people do business with who they know, like, and trust. And that takes time. You have to build foundational relationships. The thing I get upset about the most is those paid ads that are like, make 6 figures a month working from home in your underwear 2 hours a day. That's all bullshit. And don't follow that. Those people are they're feeding on desperate people that started a business and they have this idea of being an entrepreneur. And the word entrepreneur is such a sexy word. People love the thought of being an entrepreneur, but building a business, a stable, profitable business the right way, it's just about the hardest thing in the world that you can do.
Absolutely. And I would say the people that are answering those ads are not going to stick. I mean, they're going to fall by the wayside anyways. And likely you may monetize them once or twice, but it's really hard to duplicate those results.
Exactly. And what you're saying, and I hope people are hearing this, because I don't sell any cheesy crap. Like what I sell is people those ads because it sounds like a shortcut. People are looking for a shortcut, but let me map out the shortcut for you. So people chase those ads for when they start their entrepreneurial business for 2 to 3 to 5 years, and they're looking for shortcuts. Or you could do things the right way, and in 3 to 6 to 12 months, you'll have a foundational business. That's the shortcut. Doing things the right way, that's the shortcut. And people don't see that because we're always looking for the faster way to get there. But the shortcut is doing things the right way, building relationships, setting things up properly. One of my early mentors, he told me when I started being successful in the coin business, he said, Dennis, make sure you do everything right the first time, because there's nothing worse than having to back out and redo. It costs time and resources, which is finite for all of us, right? So it's doing things the right way the first time from the beginning. If you don't know, ask for help, hire somebody. If you think it's expensive to hire an expert, wait till you hire an amateur.
And replace them and hire them over and over again. It's absolutely been there, done that. I absolutely know what that costs. It's not cheap.
No. And it's ongoing. So, you can run those paid ads. There's actually business models where that works. You can run $100,000 a month in paid ads. And if you make back 110,000, 120,000, it actually works. The problem is that when you stop running ads, the phone stops ringing because there's no foundational business. That was your business model. So you have to build the things people don't understand is that paid ads or paid ads campaigns like that, it's a supplement to your business. It's not a substitute for doing business. And people often confuse those two things. So you want to do them together, not instead of, right? And if you do things the right way, I use 0 paid ads, 0, and I make 5 figures a month. So,
well, and part of this that bothers me is when people that ask me, how I'm marketing in my business, I give everybody the map. I mean, I don't do it for them. And the reality is I don't do a lot of paid ads either. I mean, I have some paid marketing out there, but this is a great example. The Generations of Wealth podcast. I provide content. I provide, people like you on the show that are willing to share their information. And as I add more content, then people are going to come and inquire about what they can do to do business with me. but everybody wants that shortcut. And I'm in the real estate space, primarily, residential and light commercial real estate has always been my bread and butter. And when everybody else is suffering to get deals, a lot of my deals that come to me are referrals. They're word of mouth. They have nothing to do with any current marketing. It's the last 20 years of relationships that I built and doing what I said I would do that then brings me these deals. And just like you said, there is no easy button. I mean, if somebody's selling you an easy button, it may work occasionally, but it's damn hard to build a business on.
Yeah, and what you just described was, Bill, you're providing value. With this podcast, this interview, with all your groups that you run, you're providing value and you're building trust. And that's what business with who they know, like, and trust. And that business it's not transactional, then it becomes a long-term business relationship. And that's why you're successful. And people don't understand that part of it because they're buying into those ads that are like, because they have to pay their credit card bills. They have to pay the mortgage that they can't afford because their house was overvalued and the market's about to crash again. So they're looking for quick fix, but the quick fix is to do things the right way. There's no other way around it. Quick fix, money easily gained is easily lost.
Absolutely. And then when you throw in a black swan event like COVID, you could pay all you wanted in ads depending on what business you were in. It didn't matter if everybody was on lockdown. So you've got to have, that's where those long-term relationships come into play. For many of us, 2020 was our best year in business because we were established and there was opportunity. There was a lot of opportunity. Many people were suffering.
Yeah. And interesting you say that. My best year was 2008 when the market crashed, because I was well positioned with my gold and silver. So when the market crashes, people turn to tangible assets like precious metals or whatever other number of things. So I was really well positioned when that happened. And you said black swan. It's funny, I'm reading that right now. And those events happen, and it's like, and then the other book there was Anti-Fragile. You want to be anti-fragile. So when those events happen, we're well positioned for success, then we can't be broken. But all it requires building relationships. It requires time. There's no 8-hour days. I tell people, it's like, I live 2 blocks from the Caribbean. I work 16 to 18 hours a day, but it's not work. I work, what is this? Tuesday morning, I'm working, but I also work on Sunday night. And then I also work on Friday night at 10 o'clock. I also work on Sunday morning, but I also take naps in the middle of the day. And I also go to the gym at 10 o'clock sometimes. And then I'll go swimming at 1 in the afternoon and work on my tan. So it's like, there's freedom, but that comes at a cost. And I've paid that cost.
It's a great segue into our tagline, right? Live your vision. So you're right now in Playa del Carmen, you said, and I believe you have ideas of going to other parts of the world and travel, and you've built a business that you can do from anywhere. And oftentimes people think that's impossible, or they maybe believe it's possible, but they have no idea how they're actually going to do it. And my argument is, when you have your figured out of what you want your personal life to look like, and then you build a business that not only fits within that, but supports that, and essentially that personal vision is the filter. Should I take these steps in business or should I not? Can I avoid the shiny objects that are coming at me every day? How do you explain your lifestyle to somebody that's just a 9 to 5 stuck in the W-2 to make them really understand that it's even possible?
Yeah, another great question with a ton of answers, and it's not one answer. The thing is, well, there's a couple things. One is like, I don't have the responsibilities of kids right now, and like and you have to understand you're at a risk too, because the thing with entrepreneurship is that like, I have systems set up to teach people, to train people and help them build their business, but it could still fail. It's not likely to fail if you do all the work that I'm saying and you have the right business model and you do all these things. It's very to fail, but the level of success is different for everybody. But another thing I want people to understand is that when you were asking me the question, you was like, how do you find like the right business to build, or how do we know if it's the right business or this or that? The thing is this, and I don't know exactly your whole business model, but I guarantee what you do right now is not how it started.
Correct.
Whatever business, wherever you are in business, whether it was 5 years ago, my guess is it was 10 or 20 years ago that you started doing this. And the way that you have, that way that you do is not the way you started doing business when you started. And that is something that people really need to understand. When we start, and you mentioned vision, I have two things that I start all my clients with, and I'm sure it sounds like you might have a similar beginning. We have a business plan. Now I have a business plan template that I give people, and it's very basic. I've written business plans and raised millions of dollars. This is not that, right? This is more like, what am I doing? What's my mission? What are my goals? Like, what's my strategy? How much money do I need? Is there any projections, a SWOT analysis? Like all these little things, we need to write it down to start. Your business is not going to look like that, but we need to have a starting point with some action steps to take to start making something happen. The next thing that we have to do is a vision plan, which is basically a business plan for your life. So inside the vision plan, what's my mission statement? What are my visions, goals, and dreams? Like if we can't define it, we can't achieve it, right? If you want 9 figures in your bank account, write that down. What do you want your husband or wife to look like? Where do you want a house in Australia and one in Europe? Do you want to travel? Do you want a Ferrari? Write all those things down. Those are material things. Do you want kids? Tell me about your health. Like write all those things down, and then do a personal SWOT analysis. Start doing some goals. And then we take that and make that into a vision board. So once we map all of that stuff out, then we can make a start. And then eventually you grow into that business, you grow into that vision and those dreams. And then your life kind of unfolds. But it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of work. And the ones that make it to the top, I say this all the time, the most successful people, the ones that make it to the top, the Elon Musk, the Bezos, whoever it is you love or hate, whoever your success hero is, they're not necessarily smarter or better than we are. They just manage this better. When you learn how to manage your mindset, then you become successful. You could do anything you want. It's all mindset management.
Absolutely. And the way that we work with our people, like at the REI Circle of Trust Masterminds, and this is the hardest thing for most people to do is to figure out their vision and their goals as if it's already happening and as if money and time doesn't matter. And a lot of people cannot dream without engineering how it's going to happen. So that's our step one, is just getting it out on paper. And what we see all the time, especially on the personal side, right, is people's vision starts out with stuff. It's the houses, it's the vacations, the cars. And your vision should be ever changing. And over time, it starts being more philanthropical work, more mission work. Maybe they're starting a charity or a nonprofit, because stuff is just stuff. Once you have it, yeah, it's exciting for a little bit. And then pretty soon that new shiny car, well, it's dusty and it doesn't give you a thrill anymore. So that's what we see a lot on the personal vision side. On the business side, then, once the personal vision is clear, we do this burn it down exercise, which says, if again, money was not a factor, time was not a factor, what is the perfect business you would want to be in? And let's describe that. And then after that, out on paper, it's together the plan and the steps and taking those steps. So it's very similar process to what you just described.
Yeah, and it is the same thing. Yeah, you define it, then you back out of that goal, and then start taking a step towards it. But what you were just talking about is the solution to everything. It's action. And non-action is the source of most of the problems, and definitely almost all of the failure, right? It's lack of action. Most failure could be wiped away with some sort of action. We live in our microwave world, and people are just waiting for success to happen to them, and it needs to happen fast because I have bills to pay. and that doesn't work. So I end up at McDonald's at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, or watching porn, or getting drunk, or getting stoned, or these are all distractions. When instead of doing any one of those things, or all 5 of those things, if you were to just take one action step towards whatever your goal is, which is why we need to start there and define what's my goal. Take one little baby step towards that. Then the next one, it's like you crack the door and it swings open by itself. It's action is the way that we get to where we go.
And tell me, Dennis, if you've seen this, when you have your vision written out and you're reviewing it daily, weekly, monthly, it's in front of you all the time. And all of a sudden, things just start to appear. Now, those opportunities were always there, in my opinion. You just didn't know to see them, or even if you saw them, you were terrified to actually grab them and run with them. Have you had similar experiences?
Yeah, great question. So I think it's like we keep doing, sometimes we do this action, and correct me if I was off of answering this question, but like we're taking action and not seeing any results. And this is where we see like the overnight success, quote unquote, overnight success stories. It's like, see that, and we didn't see the days, weeks, years, or decades of work that went into that overnight, that Oprah interview or whatever it is. Like you didn't see all the decades that went in before that interview, right? And it's the same thing with us. Like when you put define what it is that we're trying to move towards, it unfolds actually better than we can define it. But it's just by taking the action that things start to happen. And it's like putting the energy out there. It's like you get a job and everybody sees like somebody get a job, but they didn't see the 20 or 50 or 100 rejections that went in before that job. It's the same thing with doing starting or building a business. There's so many things that go into even before you see a logo, that went into this appearance, this thing that we see. There's so much that goes into that. And I think people just have unrealistic expectations. And it's like, if you define your goals, just take anything. The one thing I like to say is no 0 days. No 0 days. 1% compounds, right? So it's like one little thing that you can do each day adds up to massive results. So to have no 0 days, even if it's like make one phone call, read one page, watch one podcast, talk to one person, keep doing that. And then all of a sudden your dreams start to happen. And then we think, how did that happen? Everything happening at once. It didn't all happen at once. It seems that way because you were waiting for that to happen, but all these other things happen.
Yeah, I love that analogy because the compounding effect is huge. And that's when all the people that initially were telling you, be careful, we're worried about you, we're praying for you, are now saying, well, you got lucky, or you've got the world by the ass, you get to go here, you get to live in Mexico, you get to travel, right?
And then what they say next is, can you help me do that?
Yeah, quickly.
Yes, quickly, because I have credit card bills and my marriage is falling apart. And now I have health problems. Like, it's predictable. All of it, they're predictable on either side. If you take the action, like somewhat defined action towards some sort of defined vision that may or may not work out exactly like that, but it's going to work out like that or better if you're moving towards it. Or go to McDonald's at 2 o'clock, get stoned or get drunk because you don't understand what the next steps are, instead of just like learn. It's constantly learning over and over again. Bill Gates was asked that, is like, if you could have one superpower, what would it be? And he said the ability to learn faster. And it's so true. It's like when we stop learning, a little bit of us dies inside. We're living in the age of AI, and technology is advancing at light speed. And it's like that every day we don't learn. We don't have to be experts in everything because, don't follow everything that's happening on LinkedIn. Everybody's talking about AI this, AI that. I mean, it's still like walk. It's still human world. It's not Terminator yet. But learn each day or each week, one little thing. So you don't have to start and be like our parents where we had to explain what email was.
Right.
If we just learn a little bit, 1% each day, then in 3 or 5 years, when it's a little crazier than it is now, we're not going to have to start from zero, you know.
And I would build on that, learn something each day, but also meet a new person each day or each week, expand your network. I started in 2003 to answer an earlier question that you had. And the first 7, 8 years of my business, I was a closet investor with myself and my wife. We didn't have a network, and we got our asses kicked in 2007 through 2009. So we had to reinvent ourselves. And now moving forward, that is really my number 2 focus, is constantly expanding my network. Number 1 focus is already what you said. I want to learn something new every day, and I want to keep expanding my education and my knowledge to help people, but also to help myself and pass that on to the next generation, whether that's my own family or somebody else's family. Really doesn't matter to me. It's really a lot of what we talk about here. So
I love that. That's so, no, well, you know what they say, your network is your net worth, right? So it's like me as possible. I did a lot I built my whole business on networking. I used to go before the world shut down to live networking groups for years. And a quick story, I'll make it quick, is that I used to go to those in-person networking groups, kind of like BNI. The one I went to was called Master Networks. And I met this girl, and she was a bookkeeper. And so she did bookkeeping locally in Colorado for local businesses. And then I saw her for a few months. I went to that group there. And then I didn't see her for 7 years. This was like 2016.
Mhm.
About 6 months ago, she sent me a text message out of the blue saying, "Do you still do business coaching?" I was like, "Yeah." And so she said, "I have a client, his business is growing too fast and he doesn't know what to do." So she sent him to me. She knew, like, and trust me, even though it was 7 years had gone by, and he signed up for 5 figures, about $20,000 worth of work that we're doing with him right now. And that was 7 years later. And so with that in mind, it's like you want to keep building your network, because every day you don't, that's in 7 years, you're not going to get that phone call, that referral,
That compound effect.
that compound effect.
Right.
Absolutely. So build a big network. And that's what I do with LinkedIn. I have 100,000 followers. Are all those people going to be customers? Absolutely not. But inside of there's a bunch who are.
And you also, to a certain degree, get to cherry pick the people you enjoy working with. Because over my career, I've raised millions and millions of dollars for transactions. I co-owned a hard money lending company for 10 years. You know, all of these things were privately funded with private individuals, and those relationships pushed me into opportunities that I never could have dreamed about years ago. But all of that, and we already said it a couple times, and I want to reiterate, all of that took a long time to build. It wasn't just overnight success. And
So every day that you're not doing something like that, even remember the 1%, just 1%, no 0 days, you know, every day you're not doing that is one day farther from your dream. So you're either pushing closer or farther away. I was taught, we always want to be pushing uphill, always want to be pushing uphill. Uphill, you're sliding back downhill. There's no planing out. But the problem and the difference is that pushing uphill, it doesn't have to mean struggle. It just means striving to become better than you were yesterday. That's all that it means. So there's no like hanging out. I mean, there's time to go on vacation and lay on the beach. That's it. But then, get back to constantly improving and becoming better. You don't have to struggle. Just keep pushing towards your goals. You're going to get there. But when you stop, you won't get there. It's that simple. I mean, you take action, you'll get there. If you don't, you won't get there.
well, and the compound effect works in reverse in that analogy, because the weight of just holding that weight on that incline, it's going to start you out and you're going to go down the hill. And then that will compound. And, if you're from the northern part of the country, it'll snowball. And everybody knows as you start rolling that snowball down the hill, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. You've got to stop that backwards compounding effect as well. I love that. I love that. So Dennis, you in the coin business, at some point that plateaued. what did you do after that? Because there was a period of time between the coin business and then I jumped you into LinkedIn and we kind of missed that.
Yeah, that's where I did. There was like two different things. That's a great question, because the entrepreneurial journey is not ever a straight line, right? It's a lot of squiggles and bumps and bruises along the way. So in between there was I was still doing a lot of addiction recovery counseling and coaching and alcoholism coaching. But back then it was a different business model. We didn't have Zoom. That wasn't a thing. I would meet in coffee shops. I had a office space for a little while, and it was just a lot different. And then what I was doing was I was still trying to, what happened was I had a big fight with eBay, and most of my business was coming from there. And so I started my own coin business apart from eBay. The problem was I knew sales and I knew how to build a business online, but where I was struggling was marketing. I didn't have a strong marketing background because it's eBay. There's 100 million people on eBay. They do the marketing. So what I did was I got jobs at two marketing companies. And so I can learn marketing. That was like the missing piece of my business mind. And I learned so much about digital marketing, just marketing in general, basic marketing principles, everything. And it since grew into everything I need to know about marketing, at least at my level. We never know everything there is to know. And then, like I said, and then it was around 2020 that when everything shut down, it was also an amazing year for me too, like it was for you, and everything switched. What happened around that time was, and this is when I was really diving into LinkedIn, 2019, 2020, personalities, like well-known personalities. I started this podcast, Funky Brain Podcast, and I wrote a book in 2017, or I forget. It's called The Funky Wisdom. That was my book. It's about my life in sobriety. I don't talk about it much because it doesn't apply to what I do now, but I got that done. But so I had my podcast and I was interviewing lawyers, because what I did was I was selling marketing. I was in sales and marketing. I was selling marketing to lawyers because personal injury attorneys have 6-figure a month budgets to spend on paid ads. So I was going after them. So I targeted this one entertainment lawyer in New York City, this hotshot woman, really nice, really cool. But I got on a call with her and then we talked for like an hour and she was really cool. And I was like, so you want to be on my podcast or no? I was trying to get her on. And she goes, well, actually, Dennis, the reason I was talking to you is I want to introduce you to some of my clients. And so she introduced me to some of her clients who were like Emmy award-winning TV hosts and broadcasters and authors and all these people. And that kind of snowballed because a lot of these personalities, they couldn't be on radio and TV shows because the world shut down. So that's when they started hopping on podcasts. So they were introducing me to all these people and I started interviewing like, NFL and NHL players and all these different people. And then I really dove into LinkedIn. And then it wasn't until about 2 years ago that I really studied LinkedIn. And then last year, like I said, just figured some things out. And that's where we are today.
So is there ever any fear with LinkedIn shutting down your account? Like I have a lot of friends of mine, especially recently, who have built up pretty large followings on Facebook and Facebook groups. And one in general, he had over 300,000 members in a group, and Facebook just shut him down. No explanation, no way of getting it restarted. So when you put all of your eggs into that basket, like years ago with eBay, and they had a challenge with eBay and everything now, how do you protect yourself? How do you protect that list, so to speak, of 100,000 followers?
Great question. And I'm starting to diversify now to answer that question, because I wanted to really build this foundation. But yeah, we need to diversify. Like I'm starting to bleed into Twitter a little bit, and then I'm moving into Facebook and Instagram. We want to have our appearance, our build attention in as many places as possible, because you're right, we can't safeguard it all. But I've also built amazing relationships, which goes back to when we started our conversation. Mm-hmm. that's the foundation. I have a foundation that I've built that can't be shaken. They could take away my LinkedIn account. Hopefully they don't, because it's working really well right now. But I have multiple mediums of connecting with people and continuing to build relationships. Our focus should really always be on building relationships, because, and at the end of the day, that's what you have. That's currency. You know, your relationships, your attention that we were talking about, your audience. That's really where you want to put your focus. It's not put up a post and make $1 million. And a lot of people do that, and they're wondering why they're failing. Is that they put up a post and they'll even spend, hours writing a post, and then they sit there waiting for the phone to ring. And that's not how business works. It's more about giving than it is about receiving. And it's like we have to be in the flow of giving and receiving. You can't be on the outside of that. It's a flow, a circle. You're giving and receiving at the same time. You can't be on the outside not giving and just hoping to receive, which is where many people are hanging out. And it doesn't work that way.
The way you describe that is the Circle of Trust Mastermind. It's the exact same thing. We all come in there to give as much as we take, or give more than we take from those mastermind groups. 100%. That's literally what the Circle of Trust definition would be. You defined it perfectly.
Yeah, we rise by lifting others. It doesn't work any other way. Most of our problems come, I can give you a list of those. One, I think, is too much adulting. That's my number one thing that I talk about. We are doing too much adulting. We're worried too much and too much about money and all these things. We need to be kids again, right? We need to just enjoy life. Life wasn't meant to be so serious all the time. But, oh wait, I just lost my train of thought. What was it we were just saying? Giving. We rise by lifting others. It's like we give, and then ask. But, we're really just one. And this is getting very philosophical, which I think that you're into. But we are all one. And most of the problems and the anxiety, stress, fear, failure, wars, all this shit that's going on come because people feel that they're separate religion, separate money, separate oil, separate land, all these things. That's where all the problems are. If we just played well in the sandbox together, we had no problems. We would support each other. Now, it's really not possible, because we need the imbalance that capitalism actually works. It makes the world work better. But the idea, it's so radically backwards right now. And that's the source of most of our problems.
And even like when you said give, and eventually ask, I would even say that you give, and most of the time you don't even have to ask. Other people are presenting opportunities to you because they want to give back. And I feel like that's a lot of what I at least have seen in my business life and my personal life. I will give anybody the shirt off my back and I know I'll survive, so.
I do the same thing to a fault. I do it to a fault.
Yeah.
And I've been burned, but it's like it's still on my side of the fence. Everything is clean. I live that way. I don't have to worry about the outcome. What happens after I give you my shirt? I don't have to worry about that. It's like talking earlier about like defining your vision and trusting that it's already done. I don't need the time or the money, right? I just know that it's done. So it's the same thing with that. It's like, here's my shirt. Now I'm going to go have a nice day. Whatever happens after that, it's not my responsibility.
Absolutely. About a little over a year ago, somebody decided that they needed to break my truck window and take all of my stuff. And apparently they needed my stuff more than I did. And I was really, really angry for a few hours, maybe even a full day. After that, I really started thinking it through. And, first of all, I have insurance. The truck got fixed. My stuff was replaced. That person is probably still living on the streets, sticking a needle in their arm or just, who cares? It's just stuff. And at the end of the day, I have my family, my health, and I'm around, and it's another sun is shining, heart beating type of day. And when you can stop holding grudges and take responsibility for everything that happens in your life, regardless if you were wronged or not, just take responsibility. I parked my truck in an area that was high risk. that was my decision. It got broke into. That's on me. It makes life so much easier to move from the shit that happens. And it's gonna happen. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, just let it go. The sooner, that's what I said earlier about the people who make it to the top. They manage this better. Like what you just said, that's emotional intelligence. It's like it's a resentment, drinking poison, hoping the other person will die. It's not the snake bite that kills you, it's the venom. And the venom is holding on to that anger, the inability to forgive, like all those things. It's like, feel it, feel the pain. We have to feel the pain. We can't mask over it and get a participation trophy or something like that. It's like, feel the pain. You could be angry. What lesson do I need to learn? Now, what's next? So let's go back to our vision plan. Let's go back to our business plan. What do I have to do to build my dreams? Because I can't fix that truck window. That shit's gone.
Yep.
I'm gonna get my insurance money. What's next? Now what?
Yep, absolutely. Well, Dennis, as we start to wind this down, what's one question I should ask you that I haven't asked you?
That's good. I've been at hundreds of shows and nobody's asked me that one. I like it. I mean, it's the same question. It's like, do you have one piece of advice to give? It's a similar question, but I haven't had that form. I like it. The one thing I say is like, this is the most important thing. And I think I kind of touched on it with the Bill Gates thing. It's like, keep learning. If they always said it, what's the two things? One, if you go back to your 15-year-old self and tell them one thing, what would you say? I would say, let it go. It's not a big deal. There are no big deals. That's the first piece of wisdom that I learned from my mentor when I got sober. We were supposed to have this meeting where we were going to go on a hike and have this meeting, and something happened and I got busy and the group was still going to go without me. And I was like, and I was supposed to be like the head of the meeting. I was like, you're going to go on it, but I'm Dennis. Like, how can you leave me behind? Right. And I got so fired up and he's like, Dennis, relax. It's not a big deal. There are no big deals. And I thought about that. I was like, wow, that was my first big God shot. Right. And then I thought deeper and I was like, there are some big deals like murder or rape or child abuse, stuff like that. And I was like, those are big deals, but none of those things are happening in my life. What's the big deal? They're going to go on a hike in nature without Dennis. Not a big deal. Right. So let it go. Right. That's one. Don't take anything personally. But the real big thing that I say to people is never stop learning. That's the number one thing, because when you start a business and then until it becomes successful, there's so much to do in between those 2 points. And it's ever evolving. It could take a year or it could take 10 years, but it keeps changing. You have to figure it out. The ones that fail, quote unquote, they only fail because they gave up. There's always a way to do it. Keep learning. Read the book, listen to the podcast, call Derek, call Dennis, ask for help, keep learning.
And that's a great point because, there are people like you and I all over this world that want to help. They also don't want their time wasted. So if anybody calls me for help, I will absolutely give them a little bit of time. And that's because others have done that for me and still do that for me and always will do that for me. So you do have to humble yourself on occasion and ask for help. And that's great, but also be respectful of that. And that being respectful of that may just be passing that on to the next person that asks you for help, carry it forward. So
yeah, beautifully said. That's really well said. It is so important. People think that asking for help is a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength. It's humility. It's saying, I don't know how to get there. I don't know how old you are, but we didn't grow up Google Maps and Waze, right? It was like we had to stop and ask for directions. And the stereotype was that men didn't want to stop and ask for directions. I always stopped and asked for directions. I was like, I would rather stop and have this one person who I don't know maybe think I'm an idiot for 30 seconds and get there in 5 minutes than drive around for 2 hours lost trying to figure it out. Right. So just ask for help. You'll get there faster.
And I think I'm only a few years younger than you. I'm in my late 40s, but I was that person that wouldn't stop and ask for directions when I was younger. Now I'll stop and ask anybody for help. And at the end of the day, that one person who doesn't know me and I don't know them, maybe I changed their life a little bit. Maybe they changed my life a little bit. But even if we don't, if we hadn't stopped, we would have never even met. And you never know that conversation, that 2-minute conversation could be the thing that changes your entire world. And
Yeah, and most people are happy to.
absolutely. Absolutely. Most
Yeah.
people are generally good. It's
Yeah,
just
the world is still good. Yeah, and actually now I'm fired up because you know what? One thing I hate. Here's another thing. The word of advice: stop watching the terrible, awful news. Like those are news shows, and we could do a whole thing on this. It's not the news; it's news shows, and those things are designed to get you fired up and to hit your emotions. The world is still full of good, honest, awesome. Don't believe all the news shows. You know when I learned this? About three or so years ago, when I moved here to Mexico, we had a big hurricane. It wasn't a category 4 or anything. It was I think it almost hit category 2. But the point was where I was living, all these trees were down, and then they were picking up trees, kind of like that old picture of the Marines picking up the flag for the
Yep.
war years, decades ago, or whatever it was. And the Marines were picking up the and help, like supporting each other, and there was like wreckage everywhere that you could see. And that's the CNN picture or the news picture that you see. And then they put the tree in the truck, and then the one guy was looking at his phone, and they were smiling, and a couple guys lit up a cigarette. That was after, and they were happy. Like the world is not a disaster. There's bad things that happen, and there's some idiots and bad people. But that's not the world. That's the show that you're watching, right?
Absolutely.
You could tune in. If something's really important, you're going to see it on Facebook or whatever your social poison is, and then go have a nice day.
Absolutely. I stopped watching the news probably 10 years ago.
Yeah,
and
me too.
other than keeping an eye on markets and things of that nature that affect our business, but I married a farmer's daughter, and the first thing that farmers do is they wake up in the morning, they turn the news on because they want to see what the weather is going to be. But they also start their day with the weather and then a lot of negativity. And then they dwell on that all day long until the evening when they turn the news on again and go to bed with some negativity. And I challenged my wife on this for quite a long time. Ultimately, now she believes the same way I believe, but if I want feel-good stories, I'll seek out feel-good stories, but I don't seek out the negative stuff. There's nothing that can come of it that's positive for me.
Just stress, anxiety. Yeah, nothing positive. You're absolutely right.
Yep. I really, really have enjoyed this conversation and appreciate your time. How can people follow you? Obviously, they want to jump on LinkedIn and start following you there, but tell us how they can get a hold of you, follow you, look you up if they need you.
Yeah, the very best way besides LinkedIn is my website, which is dennisberry.com. And there there's ways to set up appointment if you want to have a chat. Or I have digital courses. If coaching isn't right for you, I have some courses. Or just say hi, send me an email, dennis@dennisberry.com. Very
Perfect.
easy to remember.
And we'll have that in the show notes as well. And then LinkedIn, you're just Dennis Berry, or where do they find you on LinkedIn?
Yeah, Dennis Berry. I think I'm the only Dennis Berry. You'll see my
Dennis Berry.
beautiful, shiny, flowing hair and my goatee.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I know you got some great things coming up in the future. You're going to be traveling around and running your business. I look forward to meeting you in person and shaking your hand. But for now, this has been great. I really, really, really thank you for coming on Go.
Yeah, thank you, Derek, too. We'll talk to you soon.
And for everyone else, thanks for joining the Generations of Wealth podcast. Now go out and live your vision and love your life. See you next time.
Thank you for joining us on another insightful episode of Generations of Wealth. May your newfound knowledge help you in leveling up your own strategies to get through the many obstacles to your money-making processes and bring you much closer to the financially secure life you truly deserve. Continue filling up your accounts and further polish your financial tactics by listening to more episodes of the podcast at thegenerationsofwealth.com. Because in your wealth building journey, there is no other way to go but up, giving you the chance to finally live your vision, love your life. That's all for now. See you on the next one.